Welcome back to Speaking Llama. We are here with the winner of Australian Survivor, Heroes versus Villains, the great in her own right, proven herself all season long. Liz, how are you doing this morning after what has been an epic journey for you?
Oh my God, your intro is gonna make me cry. I'm feeling emotional. It's either that or the lack of sleep and the hangover, but I'm like so ecstatic. I'm so over the moon. I cannot believe it. It's just been a roller coaster 24 hours, but I did it. I'm so survivor.
Yeah, I mean, I think we speak for a lot of people in saying congratulations. It is not an easy thing to do, to go out and last all those days, and I think it's especially not an easy thing to do for a new player such as yourself with a bunch of returners. When history tells us returners are more likely to win than new players in returning seasons, and so great job. One of the things that you mentioned in your tribal council speech was learning as a new player, learning from all these people. And I think one of the things we wanted to hear was what were the skills you picked up from Shawnee, George, Simon, Jordy out there that helped you win this game?
Yeah, great question. I feel like I always wanted to be like a sponge. I wanted to kind of pick things off everyone and make it my own. I feel like obviously Shawnee's social game is like no other. So I really learned how Shawnee communicates with people and she gives a lot, but she also keeps a lot to herself. She's kind of like a poker face. And then George is obviously just like a strategic genius. So obviously from George, I kind of learnt my strat and how to play the game and how to backstab people in a nice way, I guess you could call it.
I love it. I love it. Well, we also, we heard last night that you were the last female newbie player, the last villain newbie player as well. I mean, even the only one to make the merge out of those two groups, which was so impressive. What do you feel like set you apart from some of those other tribe mates to allow you to not only get to the end, but also to win the game?
Wow, that's a really good question. I don't It's so difficult because I feel like when you're out there, like so much is happening at all times and the game just changes so fast that all I ever focused on was just being myself and staying true to who I was. And that's the one thing that all of my family and friends have said watching the season is that the way you see me on the screen is exactly how I am in real life. And that's all I wanted. So I tried not to really get too caught up in merge and swap and this and that. I just wanted to be myself. I took each day as it came. I didn't project too far into the future because everything happens so fast and you just need to be on the ball. So it was like every hour passing, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. And then in the end, I got to the end, like it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. Sometimes in Survivor, it's just kind of you gotta go with the flow and you can control some of it. But more often than not, you're just kind of like being swept away and making the
Yeah.
most of each moment. I think one of the things that was great about your game was aligning with Shawnee, George. The Spice Girls Alliance was an epic team up. But at what point did you decide that, or did you know that, hey, George is going to have to go at some point? Obviously, he votes out Shawnee. Was it that moment, or did you and Shawnee have a plan for later on down the line?
I think personally, after meeting George and seeing his game, I knew very early on that he was a huge threat. And I knew that he would be someone who you would not want to sit next to at the end because everyone would vote for him. He's an incredible player. So, in the back of my mind, I knew that George had to go. And I think the moment that Shawnee left was kind of the nail in the coffin for me. I knew that I had to really put that plan into action. And taking out a player like George, you have to execute or else you're screwed. So I had to pick the perfect moment. And thankfully, that was last night.
Well, one thing that I was so curious about related to that was we saw Matt, George, and Jerry all vote off Shawnee again off the jury. My heart was breaking. I was so sad to see it. That Shawnee was Kaleb's winner pick. I know he was sad too. But one thing I was curious was what was the aftermath of that when you got back to camp? We didn't get to see that in the episode today, but what were you feeling? What were you thinking? What conversations were happening?
I was obviously devastated for a second time. I was pretty pissed off with George because, you know, George needed Shawnee's vote just as much as I did. And so the fact that he then turned on her, I was like, bro, like, she is a definite for you if it's not me. And, you know, I suppose perhaps I was too kind in a way to think that I'd want George to get the vote if it wasn't me, and perhaps he wasn't thinking that way. So yeah, I was really upset, and I feel like that was the moment that also solidified for me the fact that I couldn't break those three up, and that if they had it their way, I would be gone and it would be the three boys at the end. So I had to win that last individual immunity because they were so rock solid that I wouldn't have stood a chance.
Mm-hmm. And that you did.
Yeah, I did.
Which, speaking of that final immunity challenge, I mean, you proved yourself to be an immunity threat all season long. But that, you know, Australian Survivor is known for its intense final challenges. And that was a particularly interesting torture device, as I think someone called those endurance challenges earlier in the season. What was going through your mind up on that rock, on that pole? How did you stay in the zone while that was all going on?
I think I just really had to draw from all of my past experiences being a professional athlete. You obviously need to be super mentally strong doing that. I think having my partner Daniel there as well was super helpful because by that point in the game, I mean, we are just all so exhausted, tired, fatigued, like your body and mind is just broken. So the fact that I stood up there for that long, I cannot believe it. I obviously just went into like another universe in my mind. As you could see, I was like shaking, but there was no way I was getting down. Absolutely no way. I would have had to be pulled off that thing by Jonathan.
Absolutely. Did you have anything left in the tank at that point when Matt slipped? How much longer do you think you could have gone?
I don't know because like I was not getting off. Like I said to myself, I will literally die on that cross. Like I am not getting off. So I don't know. I feel like I was really starting to hurt. I started to feel quite nauseous at that point. I don't know if it was just like the sun and the lack of water or just like standing on my toes for 4 hours. But I think I could have lasted longer because I set myself a goal, and in my mind I was never stepping down, and that was that.
Yeah, I love it. I will say too, it was one of the most badass things I've ever seen was when you looked at JLP and had him crank up the spikes even more. I loved it. Well, so you win the final tribal council, you all take out George, and then you are there at the final tribal council pitching to win the title of Sole Survivor. What is the experience like to pitch in front of that jury that you just voted out? Very few people get to do it.
It was by far the most nerve-wracking experience of my life. I was so nervous. I feel like I blacked out. Like I don't even remember what I said. Watching it back last night was the first time I actually heard what I said, because in that moment I was so overcome with nerves and stress that it was just word vomit, and thankfully it made sense. But it's super daunting when you're sitting there and you're like, okay, I'm pitching to win $500,000. Like if I screw this up, it's one sentence that loses me $500,000. Do you know what I mean? Like there's just so much on the line, and I think I just put so much pressure on myself. Hence why I feel like I blacked out, but I executed it and it worked and they voted for me.
Sorry about that, technical difficulties, but yeah, you couldn't tell watching you on the screen. Was there a moment in kind of chatting or giving your pitch that you thought, oh, I have this, like I've won Survivor, or was it until the votes were read that you realized you had won?
I definitely felt confident after my pitch and the questions that I was getting and the way that I was responding. I felt like I had a leg to stand on and I had a case and I had a story. So I was subtly confident, but until Jonathan reads those votes, you just do not know. Like Survivor is just so up in the air. Anything can happen. And so it didn't really hit me until obviously Jonathan read my name, and then, oh, it's just like a blubbering mess.
Yeah. Was there any of the votes that you got right? It's obviously a unanimous decision, but was there anyone that you were surprised ended up voting for you?
I think Simon. I'm surprised Simon voted for me because obviously throughout the season we had like quite a tumultuous relationship and we butted heads a few times, but you know, I really respect Simon's game. I think the fact that he lasted as long as he did on the bottom is incredible. And if Simon was sitting at the end, I would have voted for him to win. So the fact that he voted for me just shows that he's a legend and, you know, he voted for the game and he put all of our differences aside. And I really respect that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it too. Well, Liz, one of the last questions I have for you, we've asked everyone this season, is there any sort of memorable moment or fun moment out there on the island that we didn't get to see on the TV show that you'd want to share?
Okay, so there was there was 2 nights which didn't make the edit where it was mating season for the hermit crabs and they come out in like this full moon apparently on these 2 days of the year, which happened to be when we were there. And what they do is they go from the jungle into the ocean, and obviously our shelter's on the way down. And I didn't sleep a wink because these things were crawling all over us, and they were like big hermit crabs, like this big. They were all over the beach, like you couldn't see the sand. It was terrifying. That was an experience I'll never forget, unfortunately, because it was awful. That would be my moment.
I do not envy you being out there with that.
No,
Yeah.
not good.
I think that's my worst fear about being on Survivor is something crawling on me in the middle of the night. So good on you for surviving 40, 50 days of that. One of the things we also kind of like to ask, right? Being the returners, I think it's easier to put as heroes or villains, and the newbies, it's less easy. We don't know enough about you. Were you put on the right tribe, a hero or villain?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was put on the right tribe as a villain because of my sassy personality. I feel like I say it how it is. I don't shy away from, you know, my opinion and my thoughts, and that can sometimes come across as a bit, you know, off the cuff, a bit judgmental, a bit pushy, but that's just who I am. And it is what it is. And maybe that's villainous in a way, but I think I played a great villain. I was a sweet villain.
Yeah. I mean, it's good TV. I loved watching you all season long. And as we kind of like wrap up this interview, what are you taking away from the Survivor experience other than $500,000? But like, what does this experience mean for you?
I mean, it's just been such an incredible journey. Like, I've learned so much about myself through this whole process of being out there on my own, really soul searching almost in this jungle of sleep deprivation and starvation. And I've really learned that I can do so much more than I think I'm capable of, which is super empowering. I was quite an introvert pre-Survivor, and now I feel like I've really opened up and my confidence has really grown because, you know, when you're out there, it's all about your social skills. And so it really forced me to come out of my shell. So I've just learned so many things about myself, and the whole experience has just uplifted me, and I'm so, so grateful for all of it.
Awesome. Well, Liz, thank you so much. It was such a joy to watch you and root for you all season. We are so excited you got to take home the victory of Soul Survivor. And again, congratulations. Hope you get some time to rest and enjoy that $500,000 here in the next few weeks.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it.